recording.
Ya, ahorita ya.
Yeah.
Aquí ya.
Listo.
Ya, cool.
Okay. Perfect. Good. Right. So first of all, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for your cooperation with our thesis topic. In the beginning, we have to say our topic is the sex as a phenomenon of advertising, and we're going to be focusing on the use of sexual symbols and images in the advertising campaigns and how it affects the purchasing decision of young adults. And well, like we said, thank you very much for joining us, and we're going to start with presenting each of them, each one of us. First of all, my partner, Luis Gomez. We are both senior students from Ming Chuan University. We're doing the International Business and Trade program. Myself, Alejandro Castro. We're going to start with Dr. David Trott. He has a PhD in Human Research Development and Adult Education from the University of Texas. We have Dr. Cheng, PhD in Western University in Organizational Behavior, Change and Development. We have Professor John Lin, who holds a Master in Fine Arts. And we have Kertesz. He's currently working as a capoeira teacher. He also holds a bachelor degree in hotel management and leisure. So thank you very much. We're going to start with the document that we have printed out for you. We believe that we have sent it and a copy of them in the email. And mostly we're going to be focusing right now. It's just a short introduction on the on the graphs that we have on the document. So on the first page, we have what is called the life of a trend, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible. We have three main phases of a trend. It starts from the introduction by fashion innovators. In this point, we would like to emphasize that fashion doesn't necessarily mean clothing. We're also talking about the different trends that are in or that are it right now in the market, which could be clothing, music, people, food, etc. We have the peak or mainstream, which is the second one. And in this point, we know that everyone already knows this trend and everyone's already following it. And the last one, the main phase, would be the obsolescence, which is the last one. In this part, we know that the trend is already going out of the market, so the companies are supposed to look for a different trend to introduce in the market so the economy doesn't collapse. Between introduction and peak mainstream, we have one small phase called adoption by trendsetters. In this part, the company is supposed to look for the right people to make the trend successful in the market. As we mentioned in one of the examples, for example, it's let's say that a magazine is trying to launch a new home care products or line, so they might as well go to Martha Stewart, who is famous for this kind of products and projects. So she would be the spokesperson or image of this new trend. And the last one lies between peak mainstream and obsolescence, and in this one, it's called late adopters. It means the people who already know the trend, but they are so-called the hipsters because they don't like to follow the trend itself, but they follow it after it's starting to decline. It's also called the product discount because in this part, when the trend is not so important, we can say it like that, the prices go lower in the market. Now, if we go to the third page of the document, we have the same graph, but in this one we have an overimposed trend line. Is the introduction of a trend line. As you can see, the second trend line is supposed to overlap between the mainstream and obsolescence, which is in the late adopters part of the trend. And why do we do it like that? Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're looking for the economy not to collapse. So, of course, we need a new trend, which will be, in that point, will be the adopted by trendsetters, to overlap with the late adopters as well. And of course, it goes on with new trends that come in the market. And last but not least, let's go to page number 4. Yeah, 5, sorry. In this graph, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Ngrams application. The Ngrams application is an application powered by Google. And what this application does is that it looks at least in 40 books printed in each year. And this application will show us how the sex in advertising and all of its difference, for example, sexual advertising, sensual advertising, sexy advertising, are the main topic of the books in these years. It started from the 1800s until 2008. And in this one, as we mentioned in the document as well, we have a little introduction of how it started in the 1920s, but how it started to grow stronger in the early 1960s. And the second graph of this page as well, we have the same initial graph from Ngrams, and we have overimposed what we call the typical trend line. And what we are seeking to know from your perspectives and your points of view, it's either the trend line of the use of sexual symbols and images in the advertising campaigns, it's in the peak or mainstream of its lifespan, or it's actually decreasing, or if we believe that it's in an apparent dormant stage and we're expecting it to grow even higher. So to go to the last page of the document, we have the 4 main questions we're going to be focusing on the focus group. And of course, if there's another question that comes along the discussion, it's open for us to share. And we would like to start. The space is open, and you can participate as whenever you want. So the first question will be, is the use of sexual symbols and images in advertising trend at its peak or mainstream phase? Or are we expected to see this trend growing in the following years as it has done for almost 1 century? Following your perspective, what would you consider are the reasons for this trend to keep growing or start falling? Now the space is open to discussion.
Can I ask a few questions?
Of course.
You mentioned that the program that you use, what was it called again?
It's Ngrams.
Ngrams, 40 per year or 40?
It's at least 40 books per year.
Per year, over
Yes.
all those years, so that's quite a large number.
Yes, it is.
And those were in different languages, English, okay?
Actually, this one is just focused in the English language publications. Yes. So of course, to that grant, we will have to add all of the other languages.
Okay. And so there was maybe some little biases.
Yeah.
So it's English language, and what about culture and society? So this English-speaking societies.
Since we are talking just about the English books, of course, it's gonna be focusing only in the English-speaking cultures. But of course, we have to keep on consideration that if we check on the timeline of the graph, it starts from the middle of the 1840s. And from then, it's been an ongoing topic that keeps growing until, of course, now. And the graph, unfortunately, stops in the 2008. So our main concern is either the trend is about to decline or it's still growing.
Well, maybe I will talk first.
Yes.
My feeling is that it's still growing.
Still growing.
And
Okay.
the main reason is the social media. And recently, recent years, more people are using their device to put their personal information, pictures in the cloud or just in the social media. And there are more and more people are, exposing their lives, including everything. I think I saw many things related to sexual symbols a lot around my friend circle and also in the mass media. So I think it's not stopping yet. It's still growing, and maybe you cannot say it's a peak and it's going to decline like that. I think it will keep growing, and it's a part of the human nature, you know. So I don't think it will stop or going down anytime in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah. This is my opinion, my feeling
Sure.
as a female.
Of course.
Well, as a person, a mother and a father, but irrespective of the gender thing. But because I'm thinking that it's a different world now. It's a different world than it was back in the 1920s. This is a global connection now, and I don't necessarily think it has to conform to a precipitous drop off at all. It could plane out and be on a plateau for a long time.
Yeah.
It can, for that matter, if you know, for all we know, if and maybe there's correlation does not prove causation, right? So maybe it's just that people have been more accepting over the past 100 years or so of using the word sex. Just using the word sex doesn't turn people off at all. If perhaps it's a different relationship with the whole word. Maybe before there were other things that were used as being suggestive. So I don't necessarily believe that it has to follow this trend at all.
Okay.
It could just continue to plateau out.
Well, now that I remember, talking about culture, looking at more as a global, not as a global, but throughout time instead of territorial wise speaking. The trend starts with this called peanut girls, right? That was back then when girls pretty much they just show probably this much of their leg, and it was like a big thing. And now throughout time, now you can see everywhere that they're explicit. So of course, these have been changing throughout this time. So I think it should be considered more as this way as a time. I mean, we consider it more as a time thing rather than culture, because sex is sex everywhere. Images are really explicit everywhere. Of course, because of some laws or beliefs or religions, like here or in the Middle East, they're not as explicit as other places. But the idea itself, it's still there. And throughout some psychological, not analysis, but discussions we've had, and we've read some psychology, how the mind works, and we put in our survey 2 pictures, like actually 3 sets of pictures, but on the last one, it was super explicit pictures. And there was one picture where it didn't show anything on, like...
it was nothing like sexually explicit, but it was representing, it was an image of a doll, inflatable doll, that of course is used for oral sex. And the image was to represent, the motto of the image was, do you need a new job? Or do you need another job? And of course, it was the image of this a little nasty doll, and it was to promote online job searching engine. So right now we know that it doesn't necessarily have to be something explicit, but we do know that as long as it attacks or reaches the subconscious and the sex term or topic itself, it keeps selling.
Okay, so I think it's my turn. I think every trend will have its end, and then it will come back again, obviously. It has been with everything like this. And I believe that sexual advertisement will also come to its end. However, recently, homosexuality is a big news, how to say. And I think this helps a lot to grow the sexual advertisement. Because I think we have seen already enough, as we said already, that everything is open. So we've seen everything. So there's nothing for eyes to catch anymore. So at the beginning I was thinking the sexual advertising and this trend will decrease. But number one is homosexuality, and the second one is, what's the word? The plastic surgery also helps a lot with sexual advertisement, because this is all belongs to the sexual things. So I think right now it's gonna have a big boost, but in just a few years it will decline and it will just vanish for long. Yeah, this is what I think.
Okay, thank you. I am interested about something you mentioned about the social media. I recall that there are, in different countries, and it depends on their laws as well, the social media has their censorship laws, right? I mean, we're not gonna display very explicit images on the streets on whatever, because of course there are children in the streets. So we understand that the sex topic itself has been a taboo for years, and the censorship is to protect society, of course, but it also creates the topic, it also makes it stronger in terms of taboo, right? So the human mind, because of its nature, they are attracted to what is taboo because it's prohibited and it's negative, we could say so. So would you believe that the censorship is actually creating a stronger basis for the sexual advertising in our society? Because it keeps censoring, we could use the verb, the advertising, so it keeps making it more interesting, more mysterious, so we still want to keep seeing something more and more and more?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think now it's as interesting as it was before. Yeah, because social media like internet, YouTube, whatever, TV, there are some places still they're using this censor, but many places are not. And for children, for everyone, it's very easy to access, not censored stuff. So I think it's not as interesting anymore as it was before.
Okay.
I think that there are a lot of different advertisement. It varies from place to place. For instance, that I do know that there are some restrictions in northern area. The laundry, I think there's that kind of advertising or photos forbidden in the area. So they have to they need a special package, or for the posters for the kind of advertising in the Muslim area. They can only do something in writing or some graphic images, other than the photograph in that special area. So I think that you mentioned about the raising of the sexual images on the advertising. It depends. I know that there's some comparing to the standard of the United States and the European. I think the United States, I think the standard is more conservative. I'm into Europe once. I think they're very wide open, even on the public television program. We can see the topless images or something advertising on the public TV program. We don't think that it happens in the United States or maybe in Taiwan. So it really depends on the area.
I'm going back to what I was saying in what you just earlier. When I can imagine one of these grassroots for all different kinds of countries. And what might be a saturation in Europe, and you reach a point of being numb, and it's no longer a trend. It may tail out like that faster in France than it will in the United States, and faster there again than in say some other country, and then India is going to have a different trend. So if you look, depending upon how we would delimit our way of viewing this, we have a different answer. So in India, maybe this trend is going to really keep going up. I can see maybe, I'm not European, but maybe being saturated in Europe, and maybe trailing off and something else may happen. But other countries it's going to come up, and then so I find it difficult to take this one and just this graph and make a generalized statement, because it's going to differ between societies and their values and their norms and so forth. So I see.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Is really have to see what area we're talking about. So, for example, this graph, I don't think this is a correct graph. If you would looking at Asia or even just China, just a smaller part. So, as Dr. David says, that everywhere we should have different kind of maps. Yeah. For example, in the United States, in New York, there was a movie came out of Birdman, and they didn't know how to shoot a main actor on the Times Square without having so many crazy people coming to him and asking for autograph. But then they made a pretty good idea. The guy was naked. The main actor was naked in the Times Square, and the security, every security back off. So actually they had a cameraman there and the main actor, and they asked the guy to run around the Times Square naked. And end of the movie, the director said it was pretty easy scene to shoot because everyone's seen a naked man running in a Times Square, so no one interested anymore. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm getting with these, for example, I think in the United States, even though I'm not from there, I think this sexual advertisement is decreasing pretty much. Yeah. But here in Taiwan, it's definitely still on or in its peak.
I'll give you a good example of in the States. There's a Carl's Hamburger. They're very explicit about using scantily clad women to sell their hamburgers. I don't care. I don't care. I'm looking at the hamburger, and that's the God's honest truth. I mean, it's saturated. Maybe if I were a teenager and it was 40 years ago, it might have been something different, and there would have been a big uproar about it. Now it's nothing. It doesn't have quite that. It's just like, but the same commercial wouldn't be allowed in other countries at all. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind that the woman's scantily clad. That meant it's a woman even wouldn't be allowed. So that's different. And I think I think about India. India has had the problems, and I don't know all the details and the depths of the problems with their movies. And the suggestiveness of every Bollywood movies, maybe you guys know better than I would. There's always some kind of scene, of a big dance scene, and a very luxurious and a lot of sexual overtones to that. But the society at large can't enjoy that. And so the psychiatrists theorize that this is frustrating the males, and they're committing rapes on buses and things like that. And they're saying that Bollywood is putting this out there, and they don't have any experience of that. So there's going to be the advertising is not necessarily a positive.
Okay.
In many regards.
In response to your earlier, like about censorship.
Yeah.
Well, censorship will work sometimes, but people always know how to get away from that. Just like gambling. If you stop people from gambling, they would go the other way. They still want to do it. It's part of that human nature. So maybe because of that censorship, it can be more under control. But still, people will try different ways to make, because I think it works for many, especially males. Just here in Taiwan, look at the car shows every time.
Yeah.
They hire young pretty women, you know, to
Showgirls.
demonstrate. Yeah, showgirls.
That's what we call showgirls.
They are
Big
not
industry.
relevant to car at all.
Indeed.
But still, you know, people still love it. You know?
Actually, I completely forgot about the showgirls. And here in Taiwan, and I dare to say in China as well, because I subscribe Chinese newspaper. I read it almost every day, and they also use showgirls, and even more explicit than here in Taiwan. I remember that they hired like a crew of five girls wearing just bikinis in Guangdong province, someone over there,
For cars.
for cameras.
Congress.
And girls, the only thing that girls were doing were just cleaning the place in bikini, and a lot of people came, and I saw pictures of a lot of people taking pictures. So that's one way that we can consider it different, not as
But your niche
For-
market
for-
is looking at the young adults, so maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not numbers.
Exactly.
But you think of Old Spice commercials, the same thing, the male eye candy.
Yeah.
It's all about, that's what Old Spice is about. They're doing thing for me, or the woman in the bikini with the hamburgers.
Yeah.
But maybe for the young people, it's different, and maybe it does relate to some kind of forbidden fruit or taboo, or you know.
But I think in Taiwan actually, for example, selling Bin Lang that was
thing
doing,
that- yeah.
I think they are targeting.
Yeah.
They're not targeting young people. They should targeting everyone, because I read an article saying that in Taiwan the age is around 35 to 55. Most people buys Big Lang. So actually in Taiwan, use sexuality targeting older people. Yeah, in this case.
Okay.
I don't think, for example, that would work in my country. I don't think a guy over 35 would be interested in a 16 years old, 18 years old girl in bikini.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you're buying cigarettes or food or something, just like you said, you're buying a hamburger, yeah, you don't care who is selling it, you want to eat a burger, yeah. So then again, we just came to the point that it's really depends on what we're looking at, where we're looking at it, yeah. As I said, in Asia, it's increasing, but in Europe and in the US, I don't think it's increasing anymore than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question about your research.
Yes.
Is this the only focus group for your research?
We are, in our research, we have 3 different hypotheses, and because of timing, this is going to be the only focus group we're going to be handling.
Because I'm wondering why there's no like young adults today.
Oh.
You know, suppose should be some, you know, because we represent older generation.
Yeah. We had that on mind when we were inviting the people for a focus group as well, but we thought that we wanted specific people with strong academic background and of course their current jobs to offer us a different perspective, because we're young adults.
Yeah.
So
And we have that perspective already.
Yeah.
So
I think we're a little bit covered in that.
we don't wanna get a little bit more professional
Yeah.
point of view, not
Yeah.
really like what we think. or
And
what
as
we
well
see.
to get the people, because we are serving people from 21 to 35 years old.
Yeah.
The survey is to be answered just by people within those ages, so we kind of cover
Yeah.
the young adults part. Yes, thank you.
And that's a good thing. Actually, because of Google, we have passed this survey everywhere. So
Around the world.
we can say we have like people from all over around the world have taken this survey. Google, thank you.
Yeah. So maybe we can move to the
Yeah,
second question.
sure.
So last page, the question number 2, it says, I believe we talked about it a little bit, but it says, given the role of censorship in its different aspects, social, religious, economic, moral, ethic, etc., do you consider that it has been an effective way to decrease the strength of sexual content in the advertising campaigns, or has it created a stronger taboo that boosts the effectiveness within the consumers?
We're talking a little bit about that.
I don't know if there's something else anyone would like to add about the same topic? The
You
same
mean that
question?
taboo that boosts the effectiveness within the consumers? Do you
Yeah.
mean that consumers, they will judge or?
And actually, what I asked you previously, that if you believe that censorship had done an effective way in terms of censoring
Oh.
the advertising, but I think the main focus of the question is mostly if the role of censorship itself has created a stronger sexual taboo that makes us, like I said, makes us want more and see more, and what's the mystery of that?
Yeah, I think it will work on those people, especially younger people who has not no access maybe to social media. But for everyone else, I don't think it will be more interesting. As I said, it's very easy to access to sites for pictures or for videos where there are no censorship at all. So for those people who has, for example, in many Asian countries or India, they don't have maybe internet, or they don't have so often they cannot get on the online, then I think it will help, because this, from my perspective, is always interesting something you don't have it or you don't see it. So if I'm looking at it at that point, if the picture is covered, obviously I will be more interested. But I have seen it a million times, so it won't work on me. It only will work on people where they have less access to social media.
Okay.
How do you define young adult?
Sorry?
How do you define a young adult?
Well, that was, we're discussing that, like how to denominate this age group. We denominated young adults because if we say adults, the word itself would be like from, we can say our age and so on until 60s, yeah. But like we know that starting at 35, 40, the perspective of most of people are not the same. They start having more priorities, if not a family or bills or more important stuff. So they'll not focus on the things we're studying now. And because of other psychologists that we have checked, the younger minds are more influential than the older ones.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, because as I'm listening, I think what could happen here, your focus group is going to come in at the adult, at the senior adult level. But a young adult would be, in my opinion, would be someone from pre-adolescent to maybe late adolescence, and you're up until maybe 17 or 18. But after that, maybe nowadays 20, 21. So that's a highly impressionable group. And I've taught teenagers before. I've seen some issues, a lot of issues with teenagers before, and so the taboo thing will apply to them. But I don't think it's going to be a big deal for someone who's 25. Someone's starting to pay mortgages and house, car payments and stuff like that. But there is a phenomenon by trying to prohibit something from a teenager that makes it all more attractive for them to try to get to. That's more characteristic of that group, not for me. So that's why I think it's important to define what's a young adult, and maybe go to the professionals. And for me, that would be the pre-adolescent, adolescent, up to the 16, 17-year-olds. And then this would apply, that you get the unintended result by trying to censor something. That's exactly what they go for. And that is the I don't know if that's the nature of the sex, or it's just the nature of it being a taboo. You can't have it. You can't just say, well, guess what? I'm gonna get it. And that's not uncommon because teenagers want, in a strange way, that's the way they assert their independence and control, whatever it might be, coffee versus milk, whatever it might be.
The main reason we decided to mostly focus on people between 21 to 35 years old is first one, because if we would target people younger than 21, we know that it's the age that they but they are most interested in experimenting sexual things, in sexual activities or whatever in their life.
21 to 30?
No, before.
Oh, before you that, I was gonna say, I mean,
Yeah.
how about
No,
12 to 16?
No, I mean, I'm talking about younger people than 21, and of course it's an age that their hormones are out of control somehow. So of course the taboo is gonna be something for them.
This is the time for them for discovery time.
Right.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
I want to get so I still don't think I got a clear answer to how you use the young adult. So is it 21 to 30 or is it less than 21?
21 to 35.
Okay, now I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't. I just personally, I think that's in my mind's wrapped in.
Would you call that adults?
I guess I would.
Okay.
Yeah, typically I would.
Oh, and plus.
But you could have people who are not, who are more mature than others.
Definitely.
Either 21, maybe an adult learner is typically a 25-year-old person
Yeah.
with 2 or 3 years of experience. But you can have a very mature 19-year-old or 18-year-old that
Yeah.
acts like that, and you have an extremely mature 25-year-old.
Yeah.
But young adults, I think, in the psychology literature, you're going to find are going to be adolescents.
Yeah.
And in young adolescents. So,
And on the other side, we didn't want to take above 35 because we know that they have lived a different era of the sex explosion
Right.
that we've had before. So it's of course it will be a very, very biased response to the focus group and survey.
Plus, I was thinking about the economic independence.
Yeah.
Economical independence. Around starting at 21, usually people, if you went to university, start looking for jobs and start getting first salaries, and unless you studied business or something money related, most people don't know how to manage their accounts and their money. So it's also really influential if you don't know how to manage your accounts, unless you study business. So that's a factor that why we choose this, the
Yeah.
economical independence.
okay, so with your 21-year-olds in mind, I don't think that taboo has anything to do with it. It would if we were even younger than that, but once you're 21, I don't think it's going to be
Okay.
much of a difference.
So your survey through Google, you only limit the sample will be between the ages of 21 and 35?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And also it will be very difficult to find English speakers below that age, here in Taiwan at least.
Because
So-
I think that sexual advertising not just work better or stronger on young adults, actually people in different age groups, people in middle age classes, and somehow in their middle age, maybe sex is not so available to them.
Okay.
So in their hearts, maybe they will be, sexual message through the advertising will have stronger impact on people in the middle age. So just one suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much. Something else?
Going back to these young adults, I also think that again every country is going to be different, because some countries, girls and boys, they grow up by age 14, 15, and they have children. They are parents. So again, in some countries, people will, like in Taiwan, for example, many students are studying until 25, 27, even 30. Many countries, they finish study by age 16. So then again, everywhere, this topic, young adults, will again described in a different way. Yeah. So this survey is only targeting Taiwan. Your results is only targeting Taiwan.
No, it's
or-
targeting general idea.
Yeah, general.
Yeah. So maybe we're gonna move to the question number 3. And we have that in the 1960s and 1970s, the world experienced the sexual revolution issue. The sex symbols and images in advertising was in the climax of its boom. Yet this trend did not reach its peak and has been increasing in a sustainable way throughout the new millennium. What would you believe are the reasons and characteristics that differ these two periods? And by these two periods, we mean the sexual revolution between 1960s and 70s and now.
And now.
Yes.
Well, this is a very general question, but I don't think it happened in the 60s and the 70s. It was very influential, but not everywhere in the world. And I don't remember, I was young that time, so I had vicarious experience with my sister, who was right in the throes of all this. I mean, I was born in '54, and she was right in the throes of all of this. But I don't think that it had reached its peak there. I think maybe the desires were on the surface, but I don't remember. I honestly cannot tell you of many commercials or advertising that are nearly as explicit as they are nowadays. There's a world of difference looking back to the 60s and 70s. I think those were when they were very conservative times. So I don't. There might have been a sexual revolution, but I don't think the sex symbols and images were in the climax. I don't think that at all. I think it's much more prevalent now in the advertising, the actual advertising.
But if we position ourselves in that timing, maybe we would believe that, okay, we cannot go further than what we're doing right now. But now, because we can have a retrospective of what happened and what's been happening between that era and now, we can tell that it was definitely not at its climax, right?
Is that what you're saying here?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It was not at its climax.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think so.
the main focus of that
Those
question,
might have been the early explorers.
yeah. The main focus of that question is that, do you believe that right now we are in a climax, or is it an apparent dormant climax as it happened in the 60s and 70s, and we are expecting it to grow bigger?
Yeah, we based these assumptions on the start and the start use of drugs and the new new ways of expression, as the hippies, the disco, and these you can say social movements, or yeah, kind of like that. They started opening up, just like Peter said. Now the homosexuality, they're just opening now. So what if? So the question now arises, like, what if now it's nothing left to be open, like homosexuality? Maybe that's it. But what if there is something more? Like, nobody expected back then that homosexuality was gonna be now legal.
Yeah.
So, like, if there was gonna be something later that might change things, so that's what kind of the base of the question.
I think that there's still gonna be changes and there's gonna be new things coming out. But I think what will change is our perspective of a man looking at a woman or a woman looking at a man. Because we had sexual advertisement models from 80s and 90s. There were those models looked completely different what we had 10 years ago. And now again coming a new type of models, new type of advertisement of being fit, being strong. And then I think this again will change. So I think we will have definitely changes in the future regarding sexual advertisement, but more likely it's because there's nowhere to go. We had men and women, we had women and women, now we have men and men. I think there is really nowhere to go, but it will just change the perspective of looking at one person. Yeah. Yes, it's right.
Yeah.
Well, then there's the androgynous period of the David
Exactly.
Bowies, and that's still a
That's something that
unisexual
just
thing.
came to my mind, because yes, we already know the homosexuality, but right now there are also the transsexuals coming, and it's a popular thing, especially here in Asia.
Yeah,
you know,
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia, the transsexuality is very, very common, and it's become a tourist attraction,
Yeah.
right? So
Especially in Thailand,
Cut toys, and they're protected by law.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And androgynous is just it's like neutral.
Exactly, and even now in USA, you can change your gender even in your identity cards in some states of the country. So
I think all of these we had before, but it wasn't exposed as much as now. So this why we think is new. This why something is trend. This why we think is yes, it's something wow. We're looking at it. But I think all this we had before. Just people were conservative and they didn't come out with it. So yeah, because if you're looking at, for example, homosexuality, recently we have so many people after 35, 40, they came out. They're homosexuals. They were homosexuals when they were 10, 15. But because now sexuality is so exposed and is accepted everywhere, so that's why it's out now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So do you believe that these new sexual trends, maybe we can call it like that, are the future of the trend of sexual advertising?
Well, I hope
Niche
not.
trends.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a big market for homosexuals, and then the transgender. Depends on what you're. Now you have sexual niche markets.
Yeah.
And so.
Now there are more and more talk shows in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
They focus on similar issues. They are more open to it. So I think gradually people will be more open-minded about these issues, and more messages could be expected, you will see from advertising.
Okay. So what would you believe are the characteristics that right now keep the sexual advertising going on? What would be the reasons that made it different from the 60s and 70s and 80s? Because, I mean, yes, sex is sex, but sex has been the same thing since the
I think
beginning of
it's
time.
being more explicit.
Okay.
I think that's how I would say it. There's not much. There's no more mystery.
Yeah,
And there's no more mystery anymore. And that's kind of it's not the destination. It's a journey. So we're all there. So there's no more mystique about it, and that's for something for me that doesn't interest me. It's blah.
Okay.
So I think it's more explicit in every way imaginable.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we move to the front?
Yeah, sure.
Something else you want to add? So maybe we can move to the last question. It says, do you believe the use of sexual symbols and images bombarding opened the gate to a sex revolution where homosexuals, lesbians, bisexuals, polygamous relationships, etc. boomed in the latest years? Would you consider the use of sexual symbols and images in the advertising industry in an apparent dormant peak but ready to increase at any time?
Dormant.
Yeah.
I think it reaches a point of saturation in terms of openness and explicitness, and after that, I guess the advertising agencies and companies want to go to other societies where there's have been more conservative or repressed, and that's what caused a lot of issues. But I think I don't think, because dormant would just say it's not going to. I mean, this is clear, not go up and not go down.
Yeah.
But it's going to continue, and maybe at a very high, maybe a very high level. I think that's just it's going to be part of what happens.
So do you expect it to grow even higher?
In certain areas, it can only go up, can't go
Yeah.
down. That's the way I see it. I'd like to know where has there been a boom in polygamous relationships? Polygamy.
Polygamy,
I mean,
it's been a
that's
boom since the 2000s.
Why multiple wives and multiple husbands are normal in lots of countries. But so that's what does it mean. So,
We're mostly,
that's interesting.
yeah, I understand your question, but I think we're mostly thinking about polygamous sexual relationships.
Okay, you're
You know,
talking
because
about
yes, the Muslims are allowed to have several wives. Yes,
Not promiscuity, not polygamy.
Exactly.
Polygamy is a more committed relationship.
Okay.
And promiscuity means many relationships, but not so committed.
Okay.
It's
It's not about marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
And polygamous, I think, is related to marriage.
And now, I mean, orgies are so common.
So promiscuity is what you're saying. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Usually, if we're going to go for the advertising for either product or kind of concept or service, it depends on the what kind of advertiser they're going to, what kind of product or some service they're going to provide. And also it has to depend on the advertiser. Are they going to be conservative or very, how do you call that, avant-garde or whatever. And also it depends what kind of society are they going to accept the kind of concept. And sometimes that like homosexuality, the kind of behavior is only accepted by certain kind of group or people only. And we realize that they just open up the door and say, well, some people say, oh, they are the homosexual. I said, okay, I accept that kind of person or personality, and we accept that. However, what kind of product for them especially, or what kind of advertising for them especially, I think that's quite limited. And it really depends. Depends on the society. Are they going to be very conservative, or what kind of message they're going to convey to the consumers or the audience or the majority of the people? It really depends.
Okay.
I was remembering that in order for someone to, like, the first step to make a purchase, it needs to create awareness, right? And that's the first move that I have to do for later process of purchasing and so on. And I was thinking, if at some point stereotypes will give me a certain idea of what I want, and advertisers or marketers will use this. So probably this is why at some point there was some kind of a stereotype created, and everybody seemed to like it, so just kept using it. Like, does it really count, like, if a stereotype, a certain type of stereotype? Like, let's say,
All rock and roll band members enjoy free sex, drugs, and wild times.
yeah, or like, for example,
I want to be like that.
or like, for example,
I want to masturbate my guitar.
yeah, or like, for example,
All that was marketing. Believe me, all marketing. Madonna, are you kidding me? Merchandising all around, all that stuff. Those probably the 60s and 70s was it advertising that opened it up? No, I think it was drugs and music and having a large subculture, because when you get numbers of baby boomers are big in numbers. When you get subcultures that form, they adopt their own norms. They're more insulated from a dominant culture. And so I think maybe the advertising followed that, or tried to follow that, or keep with that. And those stereotypes and people project, well, I want to be like that, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to have my little, remember the Madonna dress out kit, look like a hooker. And 12, 13, 14-year-olds, because I want to be like that, vicariously living by that, and they are. Those are stereotypes. And I'm serious. And rock and roll guys, bands were told, go out there and do this, go out there and do that. And it's very sexually explicit, and they do it for exactly that reason. So I don't know which fault which, but so I don't know. It's just responding to the notion of stereotypes.
yeah. Well, so basically, famous people, as TV stars or famous people in general, will influence indeed in images, which might create a stereotype, and everybody seems to like it. So, well, we might take advantage of that and create and use this in our benefit to promote, let's say, a cup. Just an example, because I was remembering that I something funny. I helped for some kinds of for a commercial like or a project, something like that. And it was funny at one moment that I was in a like a typical stereotype of awesome car, and right next to there's like a pretty girl. So I was thinking, well, this sounds so familiar.
It's very cliche.
And they keep doing it, and indeed, it keeps getting people's attention. Probably, it goes more beyond a more psychological type of understanding, and we as businessmen, advertisers, marketers, we're just taking advantage of that reasoning, that those sensations to just have might be a like one way that we use that, so it's kind of it might be correlated on that way. But it's just not.
About stereotypes, I think it's definitely gonna change, but then again, it's gonna be depends on what kind of people in the future are gonna be on top, who gonna be our leaders, or who's gonna be a new musician or an actor, because obviously advertising companies will find those people because they have the followers. So then again, we have it's gonna be depends on them how far they're willing to do, how far they're willing to go with the sexual advertisement. Yeah, so I think
Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball.
Yeah.
Ah, come on, that's a far cry from Ricky Nelson days, but still, she has a big following. All the advertisers will be all over her.
yeah, so yeah, I think it's gonna be really depends on the people who, because they are dominant. They're gonna be on top. So it really depends on in the future if you get the right people, we think gonna be there or not. So it's gonna be different. But the trend definitely will change because everyone is different. So if I'm gonna have a lot of followers, I'm gonna advertise something, I have a different idea. Everyone has a different idea. So it's really gonna depend on who are the leaders, yeah, who are on the top, yeah, and how far they're willing to go with the advertisement, yeah.
I have a question, like not a question, but some kind of like doubt now, because we know that if someone wants to launch or marketing strategy or campaign, you obviously must have a target group, and the way you do it will meet this target group. Is this like some sort of law, or it can also affect others?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like for example, let's say let me make an example.
I think it makes perfect sense to have a target group.
Yeah,
There's in the world, there's so many people in the world. You have like thousands of target groups.
yeah.
You can have your pop stars, and you have your
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more and more.
Yeah.
Because before we had children, women, men, we had musicians and TV shows, but right now everything, even the men, women category, they fall in different category. We have younger women, we have, we have fit women, we have overweight women, we have this kind of people. So I think the category is even more and more. So I think it's gonna be even harder to target the people, because now we're not targeting one specific group, because we don't have a lot of people in it. And we have to come up with a new idea to target so many groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one idea, what's in common among all the groups?
What's
I
in
think sex is in
yeah.
common.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
why it's always working. Because the major purpose for advertising is to call attention. Attention, AID, attention, interest, desire, and action. So that's why it has been used a lot. So I think that for young adults, their purchase decision-making process always start from being aware, and they pay attention to a certain product offering through the advertising messages. So here in question number 4, I think the more lifestyle right now is being like many people come out to declare their special preference for their lifestyle. I think that will increase the material and different like subject they can use in social advertising.
I'm having a thought now because in certain societies, the population proportionately is getting older. In Taiwan, it's going to get older. So you could still have maybe sexual, sensual things that are going to be of a different flavor, a romantic walk along the beach or something like that, that might not appeal to the 20-year-old. And so there's still that sort of maybe that element, but it's not going to be, it's going to be different. So I don't know, I maybe think about that, because there's a lot of young people, a lot of people in the world, and a lot of young people in the world. And some societies have big young populations, so the advertisers, they know this works, we'll keep with it. But I think others who are savvy, they might see they have an older group that has still, these interests, it's human nature, but they package it in a different way.
Yeah.
Now that it came to my mind that, especially here in Asia, the government, well, actually not only in Asia, but in some countries as well, especially Canada and well, I can only come up with Canada and some Asian countries. Mostly, I dare to say that they're on the northern hemisphere, like they're most closer to the North Pole. That these countries as Japan, Canada, Korea, and some others.
Russia?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about Russia. I have to check. But the old population it's starting to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and governments start to worry because no one wants to have kids. Like like for people like from our age, they don't want to have kids, just want to enjoy their lives, and we can hear that. We can hear that nobody wants to have kids; they just want to enjoy their life. So somehow, this gap in between, because let's be honest, old people will die sooner than we do. And
that's the nature,
yeah,
the natural.
But by the way,
Einstein!
Now that
You better publish a paper.
well, my point was that in this gap, there's gonna create almost a far-fetched. I don't know, far-fetched to feel, because nowadays we're boom with all these homosexuality and all that we've been discussing, and then when we reach a certain age, this is gonna pass to our generations. But once this has been this is a gap, so when the older generations are gone,
Who's gonna fill that gap?
yeah, so we can say somehow that this is gonna disappear, this approach right there. I don't know if I'm making myself clear enough, or if you get my idea.
What's called maybe aliens?
I just had a thought, this about, maybe it's just unrelated to what you're saying, but if you say we are bombarded, you know what, I think maybe the youth are bombarded. It depends on where you choose to turn in the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel my life is being bombarded by all this. It's just not my life circle, not my life space right now. It might have been back in the 60s and 70s, you bet it was, but it's not that way anymore. And so I still have, maybe I would respond to something that would be different. So I think maybe we have, like I said, again, going back, we have not only have multiple societies, we have multiple tracks and within the same society. Never mind the cultural context or whatever it might be. But I think even within a certain society, in Taiwan, it's still going to be a very wise idea to advertise, use sexual advertisements targeting young people, but you still use sexual advertising in a different way for older people. And in between,
Yeah.
what you can do, library cards. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. I don't see this going forward on just one sort of path. There are multiple
Of
paths.
course. If you think in a long timeline, of course it's not just one trend, because a trend is supposed to go like this, right? But sorry, like this, right? But of course, between those trends we have even smaller trends that go like that,
Right.
right?
Like
So
weights.
exactly. So those little weights are the ones that we can see in the two graphs comparison. That some ups and downs are the obsolescence of other trends. So of course we're not expecting it to go smoothly up and smoothly down, because that will never happen with any trend, with anything that flows in the world, right? So maybe the point is right now, where is it? I mean, where are we standing in the advertising industry?
I think that you mentioned about the impact of sexual advertising. Sure will get the young adults' attention, for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. And since we analyzed the top 20, the best advertising TV commercials or something like that, it needs some contents inside. First of all, we need attention, of course. And then the commercial has to be interesting. And then you can bring out the desire of people. Well, I accept you, what you're thinking, or it's kind of to bring out the desire to purchase the product or service or concept. And then you bring out the action. So you mentioned about the purchase decision making.
Yeah.
It really depends. According to the top 20 best advertising commercials, TV commercial advertisings in 2013 worldwide,
Yeah.
only I think less than 20% of those are really sexual
Sexual?
advertising.
Oh,
Yeah.
20%?
Less than around 20, less than 20%, less than 30%, 20 to 30%, no more than 20 to 30%. So, in other words, that well, for the sexual advertising, well, sure, get young people's attention. But we're talking about the effective advertising. It really depends on the content and how we're going to provide the content, the message conveyed to the consumers or audience or whoever is going to watch the program.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Which I'm very curious. Which is the most? Which product is the mostly advertised by sexual images?
Sorry?
Which
product?
product is like? Or which product?
Initially, we were gonna target the fashion and perfumery market, which is the most commonly used in the sexual advertising. But we decided to go in a general idea because we found out Post-its, water, all food goods related, education itself, transportation services for like airlines. All of the Swedish airlines, they portray this beautiful stewardess washing the airplanes in bikinis. So of course there's all sexually related. Baby food. What
Baby
else?
food?
Baby food, yes. Everything.
Yeah.
So
But not cigarettes,
Not cigarettes, alcohol,
and
and underwear.
Yeah.
because of course you have to see how the underwear fits you for buying it.
Yeah.
So we didn't go for underwear as well.
And for like, I'm just interested, like, what do you guys think? Are these sexual advertisements are effective? Do they work?
I think on a certain demographic, they work, and particularly the younger more, the more impressionable, more. Would be my guess. And I would bet a big advertising agency is ready to deal with every demographic, and they probably have a sexy baby commercial food, and then they have a grandma baby commercial, baby food commercial, ready to roll both out.
So we'll all agree that, let's say, a young, an older age is not as impressive as at a younger age.
I think
Like it's not as impressive.
if an older
Right.
person, it's an old person, it's as impressive as a young person.
Definitely, from what I've looking at it, like let's say,
You mean by the
I think it's
Yeah,
it depends
yeah.
on the content. Like as you talked about the romantic walk at the beach, I think if the commercial is targeting, if the commercial has two older people, advertisement is done with two older people on the beach, and the content is very romantic, very touching. I don't think it's going to be different if they are younger people or older people. I think it's even going to be more touching if there are two older people walking on the beach, you know, and the content is right. I think it's age one matter in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I wanted to ask you, it's maybe a very too personal question, it's okay if you wish not to answer it, but to what extent, to what percentage would you believe yourself as a whole is in a sexual, it's connected to your sexual perception? Because I've been reading this a lot of articles, and it says that the sexual advertising right now, it could be decreasing because, first of all, the advertisers that use sex to advertise are so-called lazy advertisers because they know sex sells and is the easiest way to sell something, first of all. And second, that in the later days, women mostly are more interested in men who are not just good looking, but who are smart. So in the end, they created this new term, it's called sapiosexual, and is that you are attracted by people who are intelligent or people who are smart. So
instead of the appearance.
yes, exactly. So if
Is
you
that why young girls wear so many eyeglass frames with no lenses?
could be.
Well,
Could be.
I'll never forget the first time.
Exactly.
I think there's something to what you're saying about that. That's part of it.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm thinking about right now is that it's true that people may be more interested right now in other people who represent more clever characteristics, who seem smarter than other people, but that's also, you feel attraction to them, so it's also sexually connected. So can we conclude that everything in our lives would be sexually connected, like every single thing in our lives will be sexually connected?
Have you read a book, The Selfish Gene?
Selfish gene?
Yeah, that's the title, Selfish Gene.
No.
And they said everything comes from the gene. Like the male, you know, in their gene, they always want to spread their seeds. They want to make sure they have many children. But for a female, they always search for a better male that could help her to pass, you know, to have children with a smarter, more intelligent male.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that coming from this genetically like tendency, that's why you said there's a research finding about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that sexual message through advertising, why is more effective? Is there any research finding about sexual advertising would be more effective among males or female consumers?
I think there is, right?
It doesn't really specify genders. It just says in general. Most of
just-
them says yeah, it does.
I mean, most of them say yes, it's effective, but they don't say it affects more women, it affects more men.
Yeah.
Because of course it depends of what the image it portrays, right?
But
Yeah.
I would say,
Go ahead.
but I think that for most people, because I read some paper about most people, majority of people, they are not so satisfied with their sexual life. That's why anything they see from the advertising about sex has been a dream to them. So that's why they will, their attention, you know, the message will call the attention. People will, you know, be impressed. That's why it's so easy to catch attention.
Okay.
Well, just one point.
Well, you mentioned just from your, maybe a suggestion or query that there's a sexual element to everything in our lives. And I don't think so. I mean, I'm not thinking about sex when I'm fishing or when I'm hiking or when I'm doing other things. I don't think there has to be, and I need no persuasion or any sexual attraction to go get lost in the mountains or I don't need any of that. So I think it's maybe more, for me anyway, more age related, the time of my life related, and just, I don't know, it just doesn't undergird everything I do, nor does it have to. I mean, it doesn't,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay. Something else?
I think being smart is sexy. It's definitely. So if I'm looking at a woman, dressed up woman, and she's smart, I think it's definitely sexy. It looks good. So doesn't necessarily, as you said, doesn't necessarily have to look at only the outside. So it's very important to catch the inside, because it's, in a sexual advertisement, so far we only had good-looking people. We didn't have smart people, right? So I think it's definitely a good match if they could include being smart as well. So if they have this idea of being smart and good-looking, I think that's the next step to boost this advertisement, sexual advertisement.
Yeah, I said, being inside doesn't get you free drinks.
Yeah. Now, there's this saying that it's like, yes, you may be very intelligent or something, but inner beauty doesn't get you any free drinks. So that's something that.
It's a joke.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you think about it, it's related to advertising as well. I mean, you're never gonna see an advertising portraying an ugly guy or an ugly girl. It's very seldom that you would find something like
Well,
that.
then again, how do you describe ugly and
Right. I think Susan Boyle is a great example of
Yeah.
a genius, not a voice that has quality on it, it's unbelievable. I just don't think she's going to have many advertisers. She's classy, if you're saying, very attractive in that way. Her voice is incredible, but and that's her niche. That's just the way it is. So I don't think it has to be. Advertising has to. It's less than or not good enough if it doesn't have a sexual dimension to it.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. So, something else to add? Something else to ask?
Back in the Puritan days, the pickup line was, that's a bottle of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou. The word sex is never mentioned, so there's a presumption to be able to read more of an openness towards this term. So I'm looking at this date line before, there's other expressions and all kinds of things
Oh, yeah,
that happen.
definitely.
Our great-grandparents were not naive.
Yeah.
So, well, I believe we can conclude the discussion for this afternoon.
All right, thank you.
As we mentioned in the beginning, thank you very much for your cooperation and your time, especially, and of course all your knowledge. We are sure we're going to get a lot of information from what you shared with us this afternoon. So, again, thank you very much. We have prepared a little snack in the next room, so please feel free to join and enjoy yourselves.
Can I keep this?